Thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm Carla Ellard, the curator for the photography collection at the Wittliff Collections. We are honored to present Bittersweet Harvest, which was co-sponsored by Texas State's Department of Public History. Dr. Paul Hart, professor in the history department, who organized the Immigrant America Symposium, will now introduce our guest speaker.
All right, sorry for jumping the gun there. I'm Paul Hart from the Department of History, and I'm glad to see all of you here. We've been having a 2-day symposium, well, 3-day actually, because there's an oral history project tomorrow, which should be interesting as well. So let me introduce Kristine Navarro-McElhaney, who is the director of the Institute of Oral History at the University of Texas, El Paso. During her tenure at the Institute of Oral History, it has greatly expanded its scope of work and significantly elevated the center's visibility through key projects and partnerships, including the Bracero Archive Project, in conjunction with the Smithsonian Institution, Brown University, and George Mason University. Through this collaboration, UTEP has amassed the single largest collection of Bracero-related oral histories in existence today. This project was recently recognized with the 2010 NCPH. What is that? The National Council of Public History. I should have been able to figure that out. Outstanding Public History Award. The Institute of Oral History has also begun an ambitious effort to document the struggles and triumphs of Hispanic entrepreneurs along the border and across the nation through a partnership with the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and other Hispanic chambers across the country. Kristine's published works include co-authorship of Wheresoever My People Chance to Dwell, African American Women in the Southwest, Black Classic Press, and co-author of the upcoming Bracero Memories from the University of Texas Press. My pleasure to introduce Kristine Navarro.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here on a Friday night. I appreciate it. How's everyone today? Good. Good. All right. So first, I'd like to thank the Office of the Provost and Texas State University and Wittliff Galleries. They have an amazing staff, as you all already know. The people here are so sweet and have made my stay. I'm going to come back if I can, maybe once a semester, as often as possible. You've been some amazing folks here, so I'd like to thank them as well. Bittersweet Harvest, it's kind of a long journey for us. It's sad, it's exciting, all this work, and here we are. The exhibit, I hope you all enjoyed the exhibit. We put a lot of heart into it because these people, these men and these women, trusted us. They gave us their stories, and they wanted us to go forth and do good things with them. And we hope that we have honored them by this exhibit and by the oral history website that we've developed for them. In my personal opinion, when you begin a community project, it should never be about one's own agenda or publications or about personal recognition. It should always be about the people that have trusted you. Although I stand here today, I bring to you the many faces from Bittersweet Harvest. I want you to leave here tonight with these pictures in your face. I want you to look at these pictures and think about these people. For 8 years, these photographs have been bouncing in my head. I eat, I sleep with these men and women in my head. And I want you to leave not only with these pictures in your head, but of your own family history, of your own community history here in San Marcos, because it's so very important. So my goal here tonight is to tell you a little bit about the Bracero Project, but also to help you kind of get started within your own community projects, because the amount of history here is so amazing. And I just hope that's my goal here tonight. Because as you drive around the community itself, you see a bunch of buildings. You see a bunch of old buildings that are, some are good standing, some are falling apart, some have been completely torn down. But I want you to think about the people that occupied these buildings. I want you to think about their stories and about the people that have journeyed back through these buildings and what their stories are about. My story begins about a man, Mr. Ramirez Delgado. I was at the Rio Vista Processing Center, and we were trying to restore this building, and I didn't know anything about this building. And he came to me, and he sat next to me, and I asked him quietly, kind of leaned over to him, and I whispered, I said, "So tell me about this building." And he looked at me like I was in trouble, because I didn't know the history about this building. And he told me, he said, "This building," he goes, "I went through this building. I was processed. I was a bracero." And being a bracero for me is a word of distinction. It's a word that should go down in history. So I took it. So after I got his lecture, which was good because I knew nothing about this program and knew nothing about this building or this area, he kindly guided me and helped me understand more about the Bracero program. You all have read a little bit about the Bracero program, so I don't want to really go into the details about the Bracero program. But I want you to know that most of the research when we started was very limited. Most of the stories they weren't found. The personal stories, the narratives, you could not find them because they had not been collected. And many of the photographs or documents still remained in the hands of the owners themselves. So although an amazing wealth of material was out there, we had to bring it together. We had to find a place and a way to bring it together. So in 2002, the University of Texas at El Paso, we began the Oral History Collection Project, the Bracero Archive Project. And throughout El Paso and in Juarez and Durango, Mr. Mendoza is from Durango, worked in Durango, is from Durango, and throughout in New Mexico, we went with our students and we gathered oral histories with people that were in the Bracero program. We crisscrossed as much territory as we could, and we interviewed as many people as we could. We interviewed not only people that were braceros, but people that were laborers, that worked for the Department of Labor, people that worked for INS, security guards, medical personnel. And as UTEP was collecting these oral histories, the Smithsonian had also just acquired a unique collection of 1,700 negatives by California photographer Leonard Nadell. In 1956, Nadell was hired to document the Bracero experience. Well, in 2005, you know when this fate kind of plays a role and you think something bigger than me is happening, we joined forces. Universities around the country, museums around the country joined forces to see what we could do to create a Bracero archive. It had to have been fate or divine intervention. I don't know really what it was. But they brought us all together and they said, okay, we need to create this archive. There's a wealth of information. People in their homes have these amazing photographs. These men are still alive. They're dying quickly. And also the documents are still out there. And we need to gather this. We need to put it in one place. Well, this little girl from Texas, and I was the only one from Texas, kind of said, okay. I was real quiet throughout the whole meeting, didn't say much throughout the whole meeting. But I was adamant about collecting these oral histories because I knew these stories were so powerful. I mean, the power is in the stories, always. I can show you photographs and they're powerful as well. The photographs here are an amazing collection. But the power is in the stories and the narratives because you get to the heart. And many of these men had not even shared their own stories with their families. Maybe many years later, maybe many of the grandmothers who were clerk typists during this program, many of their children did not know they even worked, as they always thought of them as grandma. They never knew they worked at this time. So this is why we decided on 3 things that this archive would do. It would collect oral histories. It would put these oral histories and these documents on a website so everyone had access, not just one university, not just one archive, not just the Smithsonian, but it was access across the board. And we would also try to create an exhibition that could travel to the small rural communities. Because while we could create this grand exhibition, and there's lots of rules with creating exhibitions, as everyone knows, and people are laughing and they're smiling, especially the staff here at Wittliff. But we wanted it to go back to the communities that we went to because we went to some very small rural communities. And we knew that in order for it to get back there, it had to be an easy traveling exhibition with not a lot of rules. And so that's what we tried to do. After we met, four partners, it was George Mason University, Brown University, the Smithsonian, and UTEP. We created this consortium and traveled across the country and into Mexico. we held Bracero heritage meetings throughout the country, as many places that would have us. In some places, we went to different cities. We would partner with museums and universities. We would be the on-the-ground team. We would kind of send in small teams, get them set up, get them organized, get the publicity generating. And I will tell you the myth, although the Smithsonian is an amazing facility, it has no money. But they have amazing name recognition. So when you go into a community and you take their name and you take their power of their press behind you, doors open up. But they have no money. So don't think that they have any money, because they really, really don't. I mean, we had more money than they did, which was interesting. So in some cases, we would send in small teams, but in some cases, when the town hall would not work, we would send in large teams, traveling with 15 to 20 college students, freshmen or sophomores. Everyone's laughing. They know what I'm saying. They grow up a little bit on the road when you're traveling. We worked long days. There was no break. Sometimes we didn't get lunch because we had so many people waiting. In one instance, we went to Coachella Valley, and our meeting was going to start at 8 a.m. The people had started gathering since 6:30 that morning. When we arrived at 7, we had a line out the door. That one day, we had to do over 200 interviews. So it was just an amazing, we were honored, but we were exhausted, but thrilled that so many men came out because they waited for hours. I would like to say it was a quick process, but it wasn't, because we wanted to make sure we captured all of these amazing stories. Now, I will tell you that part of our collections, we have some opportunity. We don't have a lot of interviews with growers, with ranchers, with Border Patrol personnel. With Border Patrol personnel, we only have 2. We have reached out to the national organization. I have pleaded with local organizations, but we haven't been able to convince them to tell their stories. They're apprehensive, and you have to respect that. With growers and ranchers, what we learned through the few interviews that we have, they're caught between a rock and a hard place. And some of them became very apprehensive when we turned the recorder on. And unfortunately, some of them have also passed away. So if you all, and I'm still pleading for growers and ranchers, if you all know any growers and ranchers in this area, please forward their name to me, or to any member of the staff that can get their name to me, because this is an area that we still have a lot of opportunity in, and we have not been able to connect with them. And it's a misstep, because these are the men that hired, the men and some of their wives that hired these men to come. So I will still make that plea. Embedded in the Bracero program are the social and cultural narratives of millions of migrants who've been virtually invisible in traditional accounts of the American migration and immigration. For instance, while the basic steps of becoming a Bracero are known, the small details that make it a human experience are often only revealed through an examination of photographs and listening to the narratives. The experience of working in the United States as Braceros continues to be a source of pride for the men recruited through the program. As agricultural or railroad workers, they could support their families and contribute to the communities in Mexico during difficult times. While fulfilling a major demand in the economy, Mexican workers still endured harsh and oppressive treatments. They were subjected to fumigation at the U.S.-Mexico border, demanding working conditions and a variety of exploitative labor practices. In spite of this, their oral histories communicate a sense of dignity, importance, adventure, and unity forged out of the common experience. You know, we interviewed over 900 men, and I would say only even though they lived under some very harsh conditions, only a handful of the men would talk about the conditions. They always talked about the opportunity it provided for their families. So when you all, during the current immigration debate, and it's brutal, and in South Texas, it's I'm sure very personal, I would love for you all to go back and go to this archive and this website and listen to these stories and listen to these men tell their accounts. Because for them, it was just an opportunity to provide for their families, like you and I do every day. So think about that. To many observers, the Bracero program is either a history of opportunity or exploitation.